And here we go. Welcome to the Community Hotline, for the community, by the community. I'm your host, Bob. It's presented by 88 Real Estate Media. And today we have the not-so-secret agent, Robert Mack. Why don't you introduce yourself, man?
Hey, what's up, Bob, man? Thanks for having me. My name is Robert Mack. I am a real estate agent in the Orange County area. I've been selling homes for about 14 years. 9 of those years, really just trying to figure out what real estate was all about, right? And how to actually make a living through real estate sales. And then the last 5 years, understanding more about the business and really building a business that's worth having, right? Creating a life that's worth living. And so every year I get smarter. Every year I meet new people, and I'm just constantly on that bus of trying to improve myself.
Got it. Let's jump into our first topic, which is money. I feel like what's going on right now in schools, especially for kids coming out of high school and coming out of college, it's not taught in schools, right? Like the whole concept of money. What is it? How do you get it? Why don't you, can you kind of go into, what your explanation is of your understanding of what money is?
So I agree with you 100%, right? Schools right now aren't really teaching those life lessons, right? History, English, math, those are all tools that we're going to use. But we don't talk about networking in school. We don't talk about building a business in school. We don't talk about money and budgets and stuff like that, the real life stuff. So, which is a shame. But for me, I'll go back to one of my old mentors told me, no one really wants $1 million. What they want is the life that $1 million can buy them, right? And then you hear songs like more money, more problems, right? Everyone's got their view of money. But the reality is, and life is challenging, right? Whether you don't have money or you do. But when you do have money, it gives you the ability to do the things that you want to do during your life, because we all have one, right? So working hard, earning a great living, having the ability to, go on a vacation or take your family on a vacation or buy something cool that's going to make you happy, right? Because for me, like my work life can get very stressful, and I need to take a 2 or 3 day break every couple of weeks and just refresh and recharge and sharpen my axe. And it's a lot easier to take those breaks when you have money, right? And I was actually talking to my financial advisor yesterday, and she was saying, it's like a lot of people try to outwork their bad habits, right? Like, I'm going to make more money so that I can pay off my debt. But what happens is when you make more money, then your debt goes up too, because the quality of life changes, right? Or it's like outworking a bad diet. You can't. You got to eat right and you have to exercise. Or like when basketball players say games are won playing defense, not offense, right? So when it comes to money, I think one thing that, we like to all talk about making it, but very few people talk about saving it or budgeting for it. And I think that's something that I wish I would have done earlier on in my life, is understanding that it's not necessarily how much money I make, but it's what I do with the money that I make and how I save it or how I invest it or where I put it. And that's really, I think, if you're young and you're watching this, consider yourself lucky that you heard that. And it's never too early to plan. It's never too early to plan, especially for times like what we're dealing with right now. There's a lot of uncertainty in the world. People are losing their jobs. People are losing their hours. A lot of people I know are hoarding money right now. Homeowners are pulling money out of their homes, whether it's through a refinance or a HELOC, because they just want to have that security. So money does provide security, but how do you manage that money and how do you achieve that security? I would say 95% of people aren't good at it.
Right. Okay. So what's one tip you'd have for them, to be better at it?
So a budget is probably the absolute best way to really understand in terms of what your income is and what your expenses are. In fact, I'm actually hosting a, not to like plug this or anything, but it just kind of organically came up. Next Wednesday, I'm doing a live webinar with my financial planner, and we're going to be talking about budgeting 101, like the most low level talks of budget on the planet, right? I mean, most of us aren't running a business in our personal life. We get a paycheck or we get income, and then we have expenses, right? And one thing that I've learned through this entire shelter at home experience is my life was so excessive prior to. You know, when we got word that, you know, real estate's going to slow down and we can't leave our houses and we're in quarantine, my wife and I sat down immediately and looked at our income, our expenses on our credit card. And we were like, well, what do we not really need? What's essential? What's not? And we ended up, so my average credit card bill was about $5,000 a month.
Right.
And the first month after COVID hit, my credit card bill was $1,400. And we looked at it, and about 70% of that was going out and eating at restaurants. Right. And the crazy thing is my wife and I, we love to cook, and we feel like we cook amazing food. Every time we go to a restaurant, we leave and we're like, I don't know, man, we paid $120 for that. Was that worth it? I mean, that's like a week's worth of groceries right there. And we just like blew it in one meal because we couldn't sit in our discomfort at home. We had to find a way to get out, right? People always want to be doing something. And so we sat down and we talked about it, and we said, okay, we're going to go from 10 times a month to 2 times a month, right? And we're just going to stick to it. One of my favorite quotes is, discipline is doing what you want most versus what you want now. And for us now, as I think about everything that's happened, what I want most is to save my money and put it to work for me. What I wanted now is to go to a restaurant and eat sushi and have beer, right? But is that $120 expense going to make my life better? No, it'll make that half an hour better.
Right.
But what about the rest of my life, right? So we're looking at this as an opportunity to kind of reset our life and really focus on how can we make our money work for us better. So the simplest answer is, you got to understand how much you make, you got to understand what you spend, and you have to determine what are things that are essential and what are things that aren't essential. And I'm a big fan of taking advantage of life, having fun. So we have to incorporate some of that non-essential spending in our budget. But the question now you have to ask yourself as you analyze your budget is, how many times do I want to do that, right? Like, you know, there are people out there like Dave Ramsey that talk about, you know, setting these numbers up in your head the month prior. And hey, when you get to that limit, you're done, right? So if you've got a $300 budget for restaurants a month and you go to a restaurant on the second of the month and you spend $250, well, I guess it's Taco Bell for a couple night outs, right? Like if you're going to make it, you got to stick to it too. And so it's going to create stress for people, because they're going to get to a point where they're going to have to start saying no. And a lot of people in this world that we live in like to buy stuff when they want it. But the smart people say no when they know that's what they should be saying. And it's hard. It's hard to say, no, I'm not going to. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. So I just got a new 4Runner, and I want to get rims, right? Completely non-essential. So I'm talking to a client of mine. We get his house sold. He's like, hey, man, I just bought a 4Runner TRD Pro. I'm going to get rid of the rims, and I know you want those rims. You know, I was like, I do want those rims, bro. But my wife and I, we just had this long discussion about how we've cut all non-essential spending. So I can't buy them right now. That's it.
Discipline.
That's it. I just can't buy them right now. And he's like, you know what? I got a big garage. I'm going to put them in the corner for you. When you can buy them, they're yours. And I said, deal. And so, you know, and another thing that my wife talked about was anything that's over $100, we're going to have a conversation about it first, right? Before it was, she gets what she wants, I get what I want. And now it's like, hey, babe, this is $130 and I'm considering getting it. Let's talk about it, right? Because for me, my initial reactions are usually probably not the best reaction, if you're considering all reactions, right? Like if I'm mad, the first thing I think about is probably not the first thing I should say. And if I'm excited, I probably shouldn't say that first thing either, right? So it's like you have this thought and then you analyze it and then you decide what the right move is. So it's like emotionally I come up with an idea, but then logically I'm going to find a way to justify it. And having that other person, my wife, keeping me accountable, keeping us accountable, being able to talk through it, and then understanding like, okay, we can do this, or you know what, right now is not the right time, and here's why. And sometimes it's okay. It's just that's just the way it is.
I love that. I love that. Okay. I think that was a wealth of knowledge. I guess then what would you has your understanding of money changed from now from when you were in high school, like when you were 17?
Absolutely, right. So in high school, I'm living at home, and I don't even know if I was getting an allowance. I actually think I had a job. I had a job at Wendy's. That was my first job when I was 16.
Are you from here?
I know. Well, I'm originally from Virginia.
Okay.
But when I was 15, I moved out to Fresno, Central California, and that's when I got my job at Wendy's. And I remember, my dad is a real big budget guy, and that's one thing I didn't get from him. He always tried to teach me, but I would do what made me happy in that moment, right? So if I was 17 and I wanted to get a new outfit, I was going to find a way to get it, right? Whether it was my money or my dad's money, I was going to find a way. I think now knowing that I'm responsible for all the expenses puts a lot more pressure on me to understand that, like, hey, this is the right move or this isn't the right move. I mean, especially in business, I have a completely separate business budget. And when you're running a business, you need to make sure that you stay profitable so you can keep the doors open. And it's very easy as a business owner to start spending money on things that you have optimism about, right? Like, especially in real estate, like real estate agents will buy anything. If you go to a real estate agent and you're like, hey man, this is $300, I guarantee you 15 leads, they'll buy them. They'll buy it, right? Because everybody wants leads. Nowadays, very few people are willing to put in the effort and the time it takes to build relationships and nurture relationships, and then generate referrals and repeat business from these people, right? Nowadays, it's that shiny penny. Hey, give Zillow $5,000 and get 70 leads a month, and 68 of them are going to yell at you and hate you and treat you like crap, but 2 of them might buy. Let's do it. Well, that doesn't sound like a high quality of life to me, right? But a lot of people, not just real estate agents, but entrepreneurs in general, they want the slam dunks. They want the slam dunks. Hey, if I spend X amount of money, I'll get this many leads. So it's really easy to get caught up buying stuff.
Right.
And in real estate too, there's one, and I'm guilty of this too. So like my average commission, our average sales price is about $750,000. So our average commission ranges around $18,000 to $20,000, depending on what commission percentage we're being paid.
Right.
And so a lot of times it's like, oh, well, this service is only $400. So if it's $400, that means it's going to be $4,800 for the year. If I could sell one home as a result of having this system, then I've just tripled my money.
Right.
And so I would justify buying so many things because I'm like, well, all I got to do is sell a home. But then I looked at my budget. I'm like, oh my God, I got to sell like 5 homes because I have like 10 things I'm paying for. Right. So all that stuff really adds up. So when it comes to budget and money, honestly, I think it's really just knowing and being aware of your income and your expenses. A lot of us are kind of on autopilot. One good habit I have is I check my we have a lead flow pipeline software that we use. So I know exactly how many pending transactions we have, how much anticipated commissions coming into the office in any given time. I also look at my online banking to see where my account is at and what's being pulled so that I know that I'm always in the plus. There are people out there that just they're ostriches, right? They just bury their head in the sand and they just hope for the best. Right. So I think the best thing is be aware of what your situation is like, look at it, analyze it. And then I think the next step would be how can you take that analysis and put it on paper and really come up with a budget that makes sense for you? And that's stuff that we do. Like, for example, let's say you go, hey, Robert, I want to buy my first place.
Right.
And I have a good job. It's stable. I have good credit. I don't have a ton of money in the bank for a down payment, but I know that my goal is to buy a house. That's one of the first things. Those are some of my favorite clients, right? Like, I love being able to kind of piece together their life and have a complete puzzle by the end of the experience. But like what we do is we refer those people to our lender, and our lender will do an analysis on their financial situation and basically say, well, hey, if your credit doesn't change, you're good. If you don't lose your job or you get a promotion, awesome. The key here that we have to figure out now is how are you going to come up with enough money for a down payment? here right now you have X. So there are these different loan programs. You can qualify for this program, but you're going to have a really high monthly payment because you don't have a lot down.
Right.
If you want a lower monthly payment, we're going to have to come in with this much down. And that's the gap between what you have and what you need is why.
Right.
So what can we do each month, or what can we do every time you get a paycheck to make sure that you have your why in the next 6 months or 8 months or 12 months or 18 months? I mean, we have people that we have on plans that are like 3 or 4 years out, right? And as long as they stick to the plan, and the plan is really just the budget. So the lender's like, hey, every time you get a paycheck, I need you to put $272 away in this account.
Right.
And over the next 18 months, that will add up to what you need to be able to buy a house, right? Versus somebody saying, I'm going to save money and I want to buy in a year and a half, and I'll come see you in 15 months when I'm ready to buy, but they haven't had any strategy to save money. So when they see me in 15 months, everything's messed up. Like they don't have a savings, they don't have anything, because it's like they never had the plan in the beginning. So that plan is just a fancy word for budget. So whether you're buying a house or you're buying a car or you're buying anything, the budget's really where it all starts.
I love that. Okay, budgets. Let's kind of, I think a lot of people, when you were talking about, the whole helping the people out, and like, I think one of the things that real estate agents have a tough time doing is getting the listing, right? So we have this thing right here where you sent me, which is kind of like your what you send out to prospective clients, right?
Yeah. We call them case studies.
Yeah. So let's look at this case study that we have going on. Can you kind of walk us through it?
Yeah. So just to kind of preface it, a lot of agents, when we build our business through marketing, through word of mouth, and anytime we do anything great in a neighborhood, we want to brag about it, right? A humble brag. And the reason why is because anytime a home sells, statistically, there's a 25% chance that another home will be listed in that neighborhood within a 100 house radius. Because neighbors are always looking out to see what's going on, right? Like, oh, so-and-so put their house on the market. I wonder where they're going, right? And then they follow it, and then the house sells, and it sells for a great price. And they're like, well, I mean, if they got that price, then maybe we can get this price. Maybe we should sell, right? So anytime real estate sales happen in a neighborhood, the people that have real estate on their radar are keeping a close eye on it. So what we do is a lot of agents will send out a piece that we call in the industry a just sold. And all that really is it's a picture of the house, and it says just sold. If you want to sell, call us. Right? But there's no true value there. It's really just like, hey, look at me. Look what I just did. What we have learned is that, number one, people like stories, right? You want to take them on kind of a journey. But number two, it's always great to be able to look at something and go, I want that for me, right? So you look at a just sold piece, somebody might look at it and go, oh, well, they sold a house. I'm going to give them a call. But if you look at this piece, you're going to be like, I know exactly what Robert and his team do, and I want that, so I'm going to call them. So let me talk about the piece a little bit. So what we did was we broke it up into 2 parts.
Okay.
The thing I love about listing properties is the actual like puzzle that we have to put together before we can actually get the house on the market, right? So for anybody out there that's watching, that's interested in a career in real estate, when we're selling properties, we're selling a product. And we already know that buyers buy based on emotion. The higher the emotional connection is for this property, and it doesn't have to be a house, it could be anything. The higher the emotional connection, the more they're willing to spend. People will justify their spending actions based on how good they feel about it. So, a lot of times what a home looks like when it's being lived in is absolutely the wrong way to actually sell a house. And we see this happen all the time. So like, I'll go meet with the seller and I walk around and they're like, we got to get this house listed in 1 week. We got to do this. And I'm like, if we list it the way it shows right now, you're going to sell for about $20,000 to $30,000 less than what your home is potentially worth. Mm-hmm. Is that okay to you? And they're like, well, no, that's not okay. I want that $30,000. Well, if you want that $30,000, there's a process, right? If you're going to sell your car, are you just going to take it back to the dealer and say, here, buy it? It's all dirty. It's got like McDonald's wrappers on the floor. No, you're not. You're gonna clean it. You're gonna vacuum it. You're gonna make it smell good. You're gonna detail it. You're gonna polish it. You're gonna armor all the seats. You're gonna make it look fresh, right? And then you're gonna get a higher price. So essentially, what we do is when we walk into a property, we're looking at a few things. We're looking at any eyesores. We're looking at anything that the buyer might look at and go, "Whoa, if that's messed up, what else is messed up?" Right? We want to make sure the house smells fresh. So if the carpet's older or looks outdated, we might want to clean it or replace it. If the house is dark, we want to brighten it up with a fresh coat of white paint so that the light and bright kind of shines through. Design and staging is a huge part of our business. If you've ever been to a model home, you know how amazing those properties look, and people will spend a lot more money if the home looks and feels like a model home. Right. And that's how we're able to achieve those higher prices that our sellers demand. So now that you guys have a little understanding of like what we're trying to achieve, I'll talk about the piece. So on the piece I wrote here, prep and marketing, it's a 4-week process, right? So that's when we talk about sellers that are like, I need to list it right away. It's like, well, we can, but you're going to sell for a lot less. But if we spend 2 to 4 weeks, I get you that extra money. So on the piece, it says we made miscellaneous repairs throughout the home. We painted the interior a light and bright off-white color.
Right.
We replaced the older worn carpet with brand new light beige. We had an interior designer stage the home and make it perfect, like a perfect model home. We had professional photography done. We created custom 4-page color flyers. We created a website with targeted marketing on social media. We had a direct mail campaign, and we had an aggressive pricing strategy to maximize home exposure. So that gives the consumer, the homeowner, an insight on our process, right? When we were talking, you and I last week, we kind of talked a little bit about how I talk to my clients when we're at an appointment. Right. And about 2 years ago and before, when I would talk to somebody, I'd say, here's what we plan on doing. And although that was a successful strategy for the most part, it's hard for sellers to wrap their head around something that's not really tangible. So it's like, okay, well, I guess our real estate agent's optimistic and he's hoping for the best and all this stuff. 2 years ago, we switched it. And instead of saying, here's what we plan, here's what we want to do, and here's what our desired results are, right. It's let's talk about what we did for your neighbor. Your neighbor 5 houses down. This is what we did. And this is how we priced the home. And this is how we prepared it. And these are the results that we got. And we are confident that we can duplicate those results for you if you choose to work with us, right? So now we're talking about something that they can actually hold. They can actually see the results are documented. It's public record on the internet. So, and then again, going into the storytelling of the piece, if you look at the next part over where it says results, obviously you see the picture where it says sold 6 offers in 5 days. Right. So that's kind of the just sold piece of it, right? That's what the average agent will put out there. So we want to let the people know, like, hey, not only did we sell it in 5 days, we had multiple people that were interested. Right. And then the results, we talk about over 70 people through the open house, which is huge. Over 5,000 reviews online at third-party websites. A Redfin designated hot home, which if you're in the industry and you're familiar with it, what Redfin does is pretty savvy website. They track the amount of activity that properties get. They understand when the consumer is clicking on one property a lot more than another property. So they have this threshold, and if there's a massive amount of clicks on this property, then Redfin, the algorithm, understands that there's a lot of demand for this property, so they designated a hot home. Okay. And I would say 80% of the properties that we list end up being a hot home. And that's not something that we can guarantee, but it's something that we strive for. And then over 35 private showings in less than a week. That's about 5 a day, which is great. 6 offers in 3 days, sold for a record price in 5 days. So what this piece basically does is, in a nutshell, it says, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, if you're thinking about selling and you want to sell, this is what you can expect if you hire us. Right? And that's where the transparency begins. Because a lot of agents are very stealthy about it. Like, well, call me for an in-home free consultation. Well, I don't know if I want an in-home free consultation. What does that even mean? Like, how long are you going to be here? And I don't even know you. You're a stranger. So I think the key is, in terms of marketing, is helping people feel comfortable with you without ever meeting you, which is why I do a lot of video, right? Because I know that communication is broken down into 3 parts. Communication is 55% body language. It's 38% the tonality and 7% the words that you use. So, if you're writing an email, you've got words, but no body language and no tonality. So you have a 7% chance of getting your point across to somebody who's not necessarily open to hearing it. Versus if I'm on video, you can hear my tonality. You can hear the words that I'm saying. You can see how I move. And you'd be surprised, man. I have people that literally will call me and they're like, hey, you don't know me, but I've been watching your videos for 4 years and we're ready to sell and we want to work with you.
Yes.
So that's why I'm big on video. So, when people say like, well, what do you think it was? Like, we're talking about this piece right here, right?
Right.
I think what the entrepreneur needs to understand is not going to get business from a single piece. It's a compound effect of all the things that you do, right? So like when somebody says, well, where did you get that business from?
Yeah.
Sometimes I can't really pinpoint it, right? We're making phone calls. We're sending mail. I'm sending emails. I knock on doors. I have community events. I do all this stuff. And over time, people are like, well, I saw your video and then I subscribed to your newsletter and then I got your newsletter and then I somehow got on your mailing list. And then one day I met you at an open house and then I realized that I wanted to work with you. So it's like these layers, right? So this is just another layer of our marketing. Now, this specifically goes to a neighborhood that I've been marketing to for about 8 years. And in this neighborhood, so sponsor community events. And I've met many of the neighbors, many are my friends. And I also run a Facebook group, a neighborhood watch for that community where people, homeowners and residents can kind of, like if a lot of times it'll be like little things like the lights go out and people will chime in like, is anybody else's lights out? And then people find comfort in the fact that everyone else's lights are out too, right? So people know that know who I am. And they know that I live in there. They know that I care about the neighborhood. They know that every house I sell, I want to sell it for a record price. But I still put so much effort into my marketing because there are still so many people in that neighborhood that have never met me, have never come to one of my events. And I want them to know like, hey, if you hire us, this is what you get. So this is my way of being able to tell a story on print without actually writing paragraphs. Really, my goal with my marketing is I want to take my people on a journey. I want that there needs to be some kind of flow to it, right?
I love it. Okay, well, thank you for sharing that piece, letting people know that, you got to get a funnel going, got lots of moving parts. It's all about getting your word out there. I don't think I was aware that you did all these things, but
a lot of people aren't. Like I've actually met with people and they're like, I met with 2 other agents and they didn't talk about half the stuff you're talking about. And I'm like, I'm only talking about 1/8 of the stuff we actually do. You know what I mean? Like we have the cool thing about us on our team. And I think this is great advice for anybody that's thinking about starting their own business is predictability and duplicatability and all that fun stuff is going to make your life easier as a business owner, right? When I got my license, nobody told me how to run a business. I thought I was going to get my license and sell 10 homes a year and be cool. And what I learned was like, you need to have a system or a plan or a process in place for almost anything, right? So like if a buyer calls and we set an appointment, what are the 25 things that have to happen? If a seller calls and wants to meet with us, what are the 5 things that have to happen? If a seller wants to list, what are the 88 things we have to do before the home gets put on the market, right? If a seller's offer accepted, what do we do before we close escrow? It's really hard to do everything when it's all up here. So just like we talked about the budget earlier, having it on paper, having a clear plan, so need that for our real estate business, right? So like I could talk about what it takes to list a property to a seller for 4 hours. But the reality is they won't understand 85% of it because they're not in the industry. I'm just sharing with them the nuggets that they need to hear to help them feel good about hiring us. But we do so much. And a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people think real estate agents are overpaid. And I'm not going to lie, the commissions are big. But, you do the numbers. I think the average agent in Orange County sells 2 homes a year. And as of last year, the National Association of Realtors did a survey. There's 18,000 real estate agents in Orange County. Only 400 sold 10 or more homes in 2019. 10 or more. And that's like 1.5% of the entire real estate community is selling more homes. And 10 is great, but you're not killing it, right? Well, it depends on, I guess, what prices of the homes you're selling. Right. So that's kind of how we position ourselves as being one of the top teams, is treating it like a real business, right? Having these processes and systems and flows and all that stuff that we need.
I love it. Okay, so kind of just to wrap it up a little bit more, what are 3 pieces of life advice you have for the youth then?
Okay. Number 1, you have to treat your body like it's a temple, man. I mean, look, if you've got some bad habits, that's fine. We all do. But nutrition needs to be on point. Exercise needs to be a big part of your life.
Of course.
I'm a big believer in, health and wellness comes from within, right? And a lot of the stuff out there that the world is pushing are solutions or Band-Aids that never last. Diets don't work. Prescription medication doesn't really create a long-term solution. It's really about what's on the inside. So health and wellness, I think, is the number 1 most important thing. Number 2 is follow your passion. You need to do something that gets you excited, that makes you want to wake up in the morning. It's funny because I still struggle with what is my passion. If you were going to ask me what I really would do if money wasn't an object or an issue, I'd either be an expedition guide or a chef, because I love going on expeditions and I love cooking food, right? But I'm in real estate, and real estate may not necessarily be my passion, but it's my purpose, because that's all I know. I've been doing it for 15 years. I feel like I'm really good at it. I feel like I have a lot of great experience that comes my way through the 15 years, and I care about people. For me, it's not about the commission. It's not about the money. It's about people need help. They don't know what to do. How can I make their life better? And in the meantime, get paid for offering a service that made their life better, right? So figure out your passion and your purpose. And number 3 is, take action. I was actually watching a video this morning. Gary Vee put it out there, and he was like, everybody nowadays is thinking, they're pondering, they're planning, right? But no one's doing. And I think I'm guilty of this too. I've got this great idea, but then I won't take action on it for months or years or maybe ever, because I don't feel like I'm ready to do it, or it feels overwhelming, or I can't find the time. It's like, just do it, just start and see how it goes. And if you love it, make it better. And if you don't love it, move on. But I think that would be my 3.
Got it. Well, thank you for sharing that, and then appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate it.
Bring some value to you. So this is the community hotline, right? I want this to be like a resource for the community. So last question is, if you had $100 million problem that someone in the community, if they were listening to this and they solved it for you and you made $100 million from it, what would that problem be?
Wow. I have $100 million problem and somebody in this community could solve it.
Yeah, if they were listening and they were like, oh, okay, yeah, I can take care of that.
I would love to get into the development game, the real estate development game. I've always been very interested in either building homes or building multifamily properties or even commercial. I've been very interested in flipping. I've never really dived deep into it. So if anybody out there has any connections to mentors in the development industry, I would love to be able to have conversations with developers and builders and contractors to learn more about that side of the business. I think that's a huge untapped resource for me.
Got it. So if you're a developer listening, or your dad's a developer,
yeah, right.
Shoot him a message at @YRobertMack. What was it? So before I forget, guys, let me see. What was it? 88 Real Estate Media is looking for members to join the oversight committee to build the best mindfulness school in Orange County. Shoot us a message if you want to know more. And also, if you do business in the real estate industry, please do consider hiring us. I like how there's a cohesion, right? We're trying to build a school. You're trying to get into the development game.
Yeah, man.
Same page with that. So anyways, thanks for joining us. You got any last messages you want to say to people?
if you're young, you've got a lot of time on your hands. I think that a lot of us, we live in this society where it's like instant gratification and everybody wants everything right now. Don't be afraid to work for it. Don't be afraid to spend 10 years trying to achieve a specific goal, because you got a lot of time on your hands. And I think it's worth fighting for stuff that you really care about, regardless of how long it's going to take you to get there.
Got it. Love it. All right. Thank you very much.